Contemplation avant le chant. La Sangha est invitée à retourner à sa respiration. Ainsi, notre énergie collective de pleine conscience nous rassemblera en un organisme, coulant comme une rivière, sans plus aucune séparation. Laissons la Sangha tout entière respirer comme un seul corps, chanter comme un seul corps, écouter comme un seul corps, et transcender les frontières d'un soi illusoire, nous libérant ainsi du complexe de supériorité, d'infériorité et d'égalité. De la vision profonde éclore
from the depths of understanding.
Upon the ways of Je suis attentive à mon inspiration. J'expire. Je suis attentive à mon expiration. J'inspire, je détends complètement mon corps. J'expire, je souris.
Dear Thai, dear Sangha, dear beloved friends, we are the 25th of July in the year 2022 during the summer retreat in New Hamlet, and today I'm speaking French to you. So, who amongst you has seen Thai when he was alive? Please raise your hand. Oh, there are children. There's like teenagers and adults. Thank you. There's maybe half in this room that never met Thai in person. You probably saw him on the screen, on the internet. So I'm gonna tell you a little bit what Thai was doing during the summer retreats when he was still amongst us. Everyone, a lot of people know very well that Thai adores children. In Plum Village, sorry, there was a bit of a hiccup. Thai, there was a lot of adolescence, and I became monastic in 1993, and always during the summer retreats there was a lot of children and a lot of teenagers, and I've been living here since 1993, and I thought it was normal. But after that, I learned that Plum Village is the only monastery or the only practice center where we welcome a lot of children, and we have a children's program. Maybe perhaps today there's more practice center who are welcoming children, but back then the Plum Village was the only one. Because children were always Thai's dear friends. Thai loves children, as you see, and they're very close to Thai. And I'm going to show you other pictures During the first years in the village, Tai was sitting amongst the children to sing with them, to... Oops, sorry.
Tai really loves children. Tai would always begin his Dharma talks. The first part, he would always speak to children. And in the past, we used to have 4 weeks of summer opening. Maybe next year we can go back to 4 weeks. But after the pandemic, we've gently started to redo the summer retreat with 2 weeks. And during those 4 weeks, when Tai would speak, he would speak in English or in French. And always the first 20 minutes of the talk was always for children. And he would teach the children how to practice meditation, how to do lots of different things. For example, how to bow. So on this photo you can see Tai is teaching a child how to join their palms. In Plum Village, we don't shake the hands. We join our palms in greeting. So children, have you noticed that? And are you greeting everyone like that? By joining your palms? Would you like to try and join your palms and greet me? Look, that's beautiful. So here's Tai teaching a child how to join their palms in greeting. And did you know what that means? To join your palms like that? Does anyone know what it means? Some children in the hall are raising their hands. Yes, what do you think? Is Mom going to whisper in your ear? Is Mom going to tell you what to say? Have you seen the lotus flowers in the ponds? So all the hamlets in Plum Village and all of Tai's monasteries, we all have a lotus pond. And a lot of people here see a lotus for the first time when they come to Plum Village. Who here in the hall, who here outside is seeing a lotus for the first time this summer? Wow, wonderful, we're seeing some raised hands. So when you join your 2 palms like this, you're making a lotus flower, and then you offer this lotus bud to the person in front of you, to the brother, to the sister, to your parents, to your friend. That's what it means to join our palms. We offer a lotus bud. And that's what Tai would teach the children how to do, how to join their palms. You see, because at school we don't do this, right? Sometimes we kiss each other in France. And there are children who in their life they've never learned how to join their palms in greeting. And Tai would really explain what it means when we do that. When we love someone, we want to offer something to them. We want to offer them a lotus bud. And you've seen how beautiful the lotus flowers are. So fresh, so cute, so beautiful, right? So, Tai taught us that. We're seeing the photo album of Sister Định. Here we are, we can see Tai surrounded by children, probably in 2012. And Tai would teach so many different things, so many deep things. For example, even children are able to understand teachings on no birth and no death. Now in this photo, can you see there's a little corn plant, maize, sweet corn plant. And Tai would say to us, tomorrow I'm going to teach the children how to grow a plant of corn. And then the sisters would have to go and find a corn plant, dig it up, put it in a pot, and put it in so that we could give it to Tai, so that the next day Tai could use it to teach the children. And sometimes he would even give each child like a grain of corn, a grain of sweet corn, and he would say, when you go home, put this piece of sweet corn, this grain of corn, into the earth, into a pot, and water it. And every day the children can watch the plant slowly growing and become a small little plant of corn. And Tai showed that when the plant begins to grow, what has happened to the seed? The seed has gone, but it's not that the seed has died. The seed is always there, but the seed has transformed itself into the little plant of corn and has become the leaves. And the first leaves, they grow up, but then they also grow older, and then they wilt, and then they fall. And then when we see those first leaves begin to wilt and fall, we shouldn't think that those leaves have died. So what happens is the seed of corn doesn't die. Do you see that? And the first leaves, they also don't die. They continue in the plant of corn. So, little children at the front, can you get that? And they're all nodding. So, well done, you're understanding well. You can understand right away that nothing is dying here. The plant is continuing. And Tai realized that little children can do meditation very well. Tai had a lot of confidence in the children, even the youngest children. You are so intelligent. You know exactly how to meditate, just like adults. And sometimes you can meditate even better than the adults. Isn't that right, parents and adults? And because Tai loved children so much, then the children loved Tai back. And here we see a photo of the children presenting Tai some little letters and some cards. And often before a Dharma talk, they might come to Tai to give something to him, perhaps a letter they've written to him. And Tai was always so happy to be in touch with the children in this way. And Tai would also show the children how to sit beautifully in sitting meditation posture. So all children at the front here, do you want to show us your most beautiful meditation posture? Everyone in the hall, you want to sit beautifully? Show us. Wow. You're beautiful. And Tai would also show to the children how to breathe peacefully with mindfulness. Wow, you're excellent. You're doing a beautiful, superb meditation at the front here. Wonderful. And from time to time, Tai would invite a little child to come and sit next to him right on the podium during the talk. And the child was always very happy to do this, and Tai was very happy too. And the child sitting in meditation brings so much freshness, so much joy. And Tai would receive that energy from the child. And then the child could also receive the energy of solidity and calm and peace from Tai. The two nourish each other. They bring and offer something to each other. So this little boy here is called Jean-Philippe, and he's so naughty and very cute, and he would come every summer, and right until 2014, And when Thai was in Vietnam, he woke up. Jean-Philippe said, woke up one morning and said, "I saw Thai in my dream. We've got to go see Thai." And the mum didn't know what to do. And then she got a ticket, and the whole family flew to Vietnam to see Thai in Vietnam. And so this is after Thai's stroke, when Thai was in Vietnam, and Jean-Philippe, now he's grown up, he's a young boy. He came and had breakfast with Thai in Hue because he missed Thai and he went to visit him in Vietnam with his family. And Thai also taught all the children how to do pebble meditation, and I think many of you have learned this. I asked the sisters, and at least in New Hamlet, you will learn the pebble meditation. You will learn exactly how to do it, and some of the other children, maybe you learned already. And Thai, not only did Thai like pebble meditation, but all the parents also love to practice pebble meditation. And so during this retreat, you can find your 4 pebbles and take them home, so that when you go home, you can practice pebble meditation every day, breathing with the flower, the mountain, the lake, and the space. And then after every Dharma talk, Thai would be exhausted because it would take so much energy to offer the Dharma talk. And what helped Thai to restore his energy and refresh himself after the Dharma talk was to practice walking meditation. And even when Thai was so tired, we may think, "Oh, Thai, if you're tired, please rest, just lie down, rest in your room." But Thai would always go on walking meditation, because for Thai, walking meditation is a form of rest. Because walking meditation offers us so much energy. To walk in nature is so pleasant. We're surrounded, embraced by the loving energy of Mother Earth. And we can be so nourished. It's very restful, and we can receive so much energy. So that's why Thai never missed walking meditation. And every day, he would hold the hands of the children. And a lot of children would line up and wait to run to Thai to be the first one to hold his hand. And at that time, the children was very kind. And also nowadays, you're still very kind. So in this photo, you can see they take it in turns. So these 2 are holding Thai's hands, the left hand and the right hand. And then after a few minutes, they then let the place for their friend next door to be able to hold Thai's hand a little bit. No one had to tell the children to do this, but they did it naturally. They organized to take turns. And during the walk, Thai would rest and receive the energy from nature, from Mother Earth. And also, Thai would receive your energy, the children, because you have so much freshness, so much joy. And Thai would love to receive this energy. And then the children, you also can receive the energy of peace and calm from Thai. And Thai would also show the children how to do walking meditation in the most simple, easy way. Thai would say, when you take one step, you say silently, "Yes, yes, thank you, thank you." And you know why you say yes, yes? Because there are so many children who just can't stop saying no, no, no. And so she's now asking the children, do you say yes or no to your parents when they ask you to do something? And so at this time, the children often were saying no to their parents. So Thai would say, we can train ourselves in walking quietly and silently in our head. We say yes, Yes. Yes, and you smile. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And we're saying yes to the earth. We're saying yes to nature. We're saying thank you to our parents, to the earth, to everything that's around us, that supports us, that brings us happiness. So, very shortly we'll have a chance to practice walking meditation together, and you can try this. Yes, yes, thank you, thank you. And in the middle of the walking meditation, Tai would always like to stop. We're seeing lots of photos on the screen of Tai surrounded by children. In Upper Hamlet, in Lower Hamlet, in New Hamlet, and Tai would always enjoy walking with the children, and the children come, and Tai would do walking meditation in every country wherever he would teach, and here we can see Tai walking down to Shanghai. You can see everyone. Sometimes we've had 1,000 people join Tai in walking meditation, and always so many children, hundreds of children from different countries. Here's another photo. And even in the big cities where everyone is kind of crushed together and we can hear the honking cars, but Tai would still lead walking meditation. And here's a photo of Tai leading a walking meditation through the streets of Paris. And he's done it also in New York, in Los Angeles. And even people around are rushing through the city, and you have the energy of city. But Tai would walk peacefully with the children at the front. So here, this photo is Paris. Can you see? There's a café, bistrot, restaurant de Saint-Jacques in the photo. That's how we know it's Paris. So, in Plum Village, always in the middle of walking meditation, Tai would stop, and often near the lotus pond, and everyone would gather round the lotus pond to enjoy the lotus flowers, to enjoy looking at each other across the lotus pond. And here I think the children are singing a song. And Tai's listening to them sing. And then everyone would sit down with Tai. And here you can see Tai is doing a little bit of magic. He's picked a lotus leaf. And then look at the stem. Tai's broken open the stem. And then you have the fine thread of lotus thread that is there in the stalk. And it can hold the broken parts of the stem. And it's a kind of trick you can play with the lotus stem. Tai always loved to be the magician. And the kids are very impressed because it's the first time they'd seen a lotus flower, and then the first time they'd seen the sort of magically suspended parts of the lotus stem. So try not to harvest all the lotus leaves today, but maybe we can have a few examples. So we enjoy ourselves, and Tai would enjoy himself with the children. And then here you can see Tai has given the lotus leaf to a little boy, so he can use it as a hat, as an umbrella. And one day Tai said, I need some binoculars. I need some binoculars. And so I had to go quickly to the shops, and I had no idea why he needed binoculars that day. And then he just wanted to play with the binoculars with the children, maybe to see a bird of prey in the sky, to look at the leaves close up. And Tai wanted to we was in Upper Hamlet, and Tai wanted to see the trees and the birds. And Tai wanted to share his joy with the children. And he would pass the binoculars around so everyone could really contemplate the nature deeply. And then Tai would teach the children how to invite the bell. So who in the hall knows how to invite the bell? They're putting up their hands. Did you learn yesterday? Lots of the children have put their hands up. I think most of the children know. You're a bit more advanced than some of the adults. And then these children here who are just learning for the first time in this photo. And we need to learn exactly how to hold the bell in the middle of our hand. We shouldn't close the hand too much around the bell. We have to leave the hand open so that the sound can resonate well. And here we see the children learning how to invite the bell together. So we hold the bell in the center of our hands, and then we invite the sound of the bell. And there's a few different ways that we can invite the bell. And if you invite the bell well, but I'd like to ask, when you invite the bell, do you breathe mindfully? Checking with the children here. They're not sure. Yes, you do. The most important thing when you invite the bell is to breathe mindfully. Because if you don't breathe mindfully, and if you're a bit restless or even anxious, the sound of the bell will also be a bit restless and disturbed. But if you take 3 deep mindful in-breaths, in mindfulness, breathing in and out, then the sound of the bell will carry that energy of peace and calm. And the sound will be even better. So please don't forget to breathe before you invite the sound of the bell. And when you know how to invite the bell well, every time. So I know a family that when they left the Plum village, they went home. And one day the parents were arguing a bit between them. And then suddenly, in the middle of the argument at home, they heard a sound of the bell. And of course they immediately stopped arguing because their little boy had gone to find the bell in the breathing room, and he had invited a sound of the bell to remind everyone in the family to breathe. So this is a trick that everyone can use. The bell can help bring peace in any situation. And Tai was so happy when he heard that the family was able to practice like this. Tai was happy, so happy and proud of the child, and so happy with the parents. And that is how we can bring Plum Village home, with the sound of the bell. So, a lot of you raised your hands saying that you know how to invite the bell. So, please continue to invite the bell when you go home. Do you promise? That's great. The children are nodding.
Oh, non, ce n'est pas la bonne photo.
And Tai also liked to invite, to show the children how to make mudras with their hands, how to play little games. Do you know what a mudra is to the children? When you're concentrated, you can do different kinds of mudras with your fingers. Oh, you know already how to do it. The little child at the front is showing a mudra with their fingers. So there's a few different kinds of mudras. This is one of them. A little child is showing one like we saw yesterday during the Namo Valokiteshvara chant. You're learning so quickly, children. Wonderful. This mudra that you can see here is a little bit more complicated, the one in the photo. So here we're going to see Tai is teaching the children how to make this mudra. You put your fingers together, and the mudras express a kind of wish or energy. Oh, and sometimes in the middle of the walking meditation, Tai would do the 10 mindful movements. Who here in the hall knows the 10 mindful movements? Not many of us. There's only about 4 hands being raised in the hall. So, goodness me, the brothers and sisters need to teach the Sangha a bit better. So here in this photo, you can see Tai showing these movements to the little boys. This, we can see it's in autumn or winter. The 10 mindful movements are kind of like a gentle qigong that we can do combining with the breathing. And at the end of every retreat, everyone would always be a little bit sad to go home, even the parents, and sometimes people even cry a little bit. And so we would always finish a retreat with the song, "No coming, no going." And Tai would always say to the children and to the parents, Tai would understand why people feel a little bit sad, because the whole week we've been listening to the teachings. And Tai would have been practicing with us from morning until evening with the sitting meditation, the walking meditation, the teachings, Dharma talks. And we would see Tai and Tai would see us. And of course, at the end of the retreat, we feel a little bit sad and we would cry a little bit. And Tai would always say, when you return home, every moment that you take a mindful breath, I'm there with you. I'm there in you. I'm there next to you. And every time you take a step in mindfulness, Tai is there with you. Tai is in you. Every time, Tai would say, every time you miss Plum Village or you miss the energy of the atmosphere of the retreat, take a mindful breath, take a mindful step, and right away you'll feel me here in front of you, beside you, in your heart. And that way, a lot of people would feel able to go home and feel at peace and happy to take the practice home with them and continue it after the retreat.
Et vous savez que un jour,
and so one day, it was 2014, and Tai had a stroke. And after that, Tai was in a wheelchair. And here we see a video of Tai in the wheelchair. He's in the middle of the video. And all the children still came to be around him, but Tai couldn't speak anymore. But he would greet the children with his hand. And all the children were around Tai. And some of them wanted to touch Tai's hand, hold his hand. Can you see? When we love someone and someone loves us back. And the children just so happy to see Tai again, even he's in a wheelchair and even he can't speak. Even he can't say anything to them, but they're just around Tai and just feel Tai's peace and energy. You can see Tai smiling and nodding. So then Tai returned to Vietnam, and so many children in Vietnam really wanted to come and greet Tai. And in this photo we can see Tai holding the hand of this little child. And here Tai is doing walking meditation in his wheelchair. And you can see the little children waiting for Tai on the road. And then Tai reaches out his hand so he can hold their hand, so he can greet them. This is in Hue in Vietnam at the Root Temple. And the little children coming forward to greet Tai. Some of them a little bit shy. They can come forward, a little bit shy.
Voilà.
So we can see Thai's gentleness in these videos.
Alors sachez
So please know
que Thai
that Thai loves you all, always. He will always love all of you.
et les ados, il y a plein d'ados.
You are very dear to him. And there are also many teenagers here who met Thai when they were children, and they grew up here in Plum Village. And if you meet someone who has met Thai as a child or as a teenager or before, you can always ask what it was like. And then there are so many different stories that people have of memories with Thai. And I remember there was a young girl who used to come here every year since she was 4. And now she's come back to be staff, to be a volunteer, to take care of the teenagers. So even now we cannot see Thai in his physical form, but we can feel the energy of Thai, his energy of love in the community. And Thai continues in the brothers and sisters, in the teenagers, in those who have met him, those who continue his teachings and practices. So Thai continues in each one of us. Thai continues in your parents. And wherever you go in the hamlets, be careful, pay attention. Where you place your foot and your feet, you are placing your feet on the footprints of Thai, because Thai has left his footprints all over these hamlets. He's left his energy everywhere. He's left footprints of peace, of calm, of love everywhere in this hall, in all the meditation halls of Plum Village.
Et puis un jour, Thai s'est transformé en nuage.
And the day came when Thai transformed into a cloud. Do you understand what I mean by that? Do you know what it means to transform yourself into a cloud? I see someone nodding at the front here, one of the children. You know, we say that a cloud never dies. When you see a lot of clouds in the sky, and when the clouds, they get bigger and bigger, and then they transform into rain. And in winter they may transform into snow, and that falls onto the earth, and it soaks into the earth, it falls into the rivers, into the ocean. And with the warmth of the sun, then the water in the ocean evaporates up again, and the little drops of water droplets, they become a new cloud. So with the water cycle, the clouds continue always. So when we see that the cloud transforms into something else, it doesn't mean that the cloud has exactly died. And we, human beings, we're all the same. Thai transformed into a cloud, and we are all like clouds. And Thai continues in every direction. And there's a very tiny part of Thai's body which still exists. And a little boy has put up his hand. He's like, yes, yes, that's the ashes, the ashes. And Sister Định says, yes, you're right. So at 11 o'clock, we will all be gathering, and each one of us will have a very little part of Thai's body in our hands. We'll have a little sprinkling of Thai's ashes in our hands. And we can choose a tree, and we can place these ashes at the foot of a tree. And those ashes, they will nourish the tree, and they will return to the earth to nourish the tree, to nourish the sky. They will become clouds, they'll become the whole cosmos, these ashes. And this is the wish of Thai, because Thai often said, we are all children of Mother Earth. And Mother Earth offers us everything we need to be alive. She offers us air to breathe, water to drink, vegetables to eat. Without the earth, we couldn't have vegetables. We'd have nothing to eat. And so Mother Earth offers us all the food we need to eat, all the water we need to drink, all the air we need to breathe. Mother Earth has given us life. And we return to Mother Earth. And we continue always. We continue always like that, just as the cloud continues. And the cloud falls down as rain or so, and joins the river and ocean, and then rises up again. It's a whole cycle. So shortly we'll have a walking meditation together, and we will practice walking meditation just like Thai tortoise. We will say yes, yes, thank you, thank you. And then after that, we'll have a chance to have a sprinkling of Thai's ashes in our hands, each one of us. And you will feel the Thai is continuing in you, in each person here in the retreat, in your parents. Thai is going in every direction throughout the cosmos. Okay, you've understood? So now you can stand up. There will be a little sound of the bell, and all the children can stand up. So at the little sound of the bell, we'll stand up. Okay? Standing up for the little children, and the parents can also stretch a little bit if anyone needs to stand up and stretch. Feel free. And then the children at the front, you can turn around to greet the adults. And then the children, you can join your palms and bow to your parents, bow to everyone, and the parents can join your palms in return. Greet each other. Thank you so much. Here is a lotus bud for each one of us. And now you can go and play outside. Dear friends, in 1992, my father had a stroke, and he passed away 72 hours later. My father, so Sister Dingyam's father. And I was the youngest daughter in the family. And often I used to hide myself behind my elder brothers and sisters and my parents. And when my father died so suddenly like that, I suffered so deeply. And I looked around me, my mother, my elder brothers and sisters. Everyone was suffering so much. Everyone became like a child, so fragile, so vulnerable, so almost sort of drowning in the suffering, so turbulent with the suffering of the loss of the death of my father, and so I came to Plum Village. I had already been when I was a teenager. I'd read Thai's books, I'd heard the Dharma talks, but I came to Plum Village. In the past, it was always just to have fun. Intellectually, I knew there was the practice of mindfulness, but I wasn't really doing it. But then in that deep suffering where everyone was overwhelmed by the grief of the loss of my father, I came here to Plum Village. So 6 months after my father passed away, I came to the summer retreat with my mum. And I'd recently been reading the book, Old Path, White Clouds, the story of the Buddha's life written by Thai. And I really loved that book. And I thought, yeah, maybe when I'm kind of 50, when I've really lived my life, yeah. Or maybe even when I'm 60. Actually, already I'm 53. But with that suffering of the loss of my father so suddenly, I came to Plum Village. And I knew that the practice of Thai could help me. And so I stayed to practice, to really practice. And afterwards I said, I can't. I will never be able to handle the passing away, the death of my mother, my siblings. I have got to put all my time and energy into the practice. And then I will be able to get through these kind of difficult moments. It's the only way. And to really apply these teachings in my life. And Thai would always teach no birth and no death. In every retreat to everybody. And you know, in Buddhism, the kind of ultimate aim of every practitioner is to transcend the notions of birth and death. And in the past, people always thought these teachings, it's mostly for monks and nuns. And even at the time of the Buddha, and many of you might have heard this teaching called the teaching to be given to the sick. And there was a layman called Anathapindika, who was very close to the monks and nuns and who supported them a lot. And in this sutra, which is a teaching given from the time of the Buddha, it tells the story of how these senior disciples at the time of the Buddha went to visit this friend, Anathapindika, who was a close friend of the Buddha, who was in the process of dying. He was very sick. And one of these disciples of the Buddha is called Shariputra. And he went to the home of Anathapindika and he said, Anathapindika, now is the time for you to practice, for you to meditate. Let me guide you. This body is not me. I am not attached to this body. I am life without limit. These eyes are not me. I am not limited by these eyes. I am life without limit. And then the next step, Shariputra guided Anathapindika with the nose, the ears, the mouth, the body, the mind. These are not me. I am not limited to this body. And then after that, we contemplate and we see ourselves in the Buddha. We see ourselves in the Dharma and teachings. We see ourselves in the Sangha. These are the three jewels: the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha. The Buddha is our teacher, the one who guides us in the way. The Dharma is all the practices, and the Sangha is all our friends. And we practice together, we support each other on our path. And after this meditation, Anathapindika was so deeply touched. He felt so free. He was... he realized he was no longer afraid of dying. He touched something so deeply, and he said to Shariputra, "This is the first time that I've heard this teaching of being much more than my body." And he said, "I just have one request to the Buddha." That he asked Shariputra, please tell the Buddha. Please tell the Buddha. We, even as lay friends, we can receive and put these teachings into practice. Even they are very deep as this, but we can touch the fruit of these teachings. So please offer these complete teachings even to the lay friends.
Et dans la tradition, les siècles,
and then in the subsequent centuries of the Buddhist tradition,
on a vu que
we can see in the
cette pratique est
flow of history that this practice did continue, but it was mostly reserved for the monks and nuns, these kind of practices. And we sometimes talk about it as the cream of the Buddhist teachings, the highest teachings or the deepest teachings. And in the Zen tradition, the Zen schools, often this was taught to the monks and nuns. And Thai was has been one of the few teachers who would teach the teachings on no birth and no death to everyone, even including the children. And I remember that in every retreat, even the retreat was only 5 days or 1 week, always the last teaching was for this subject on no birth and no death. And you know, when Thai was very young, he also went through grief. When he was in his 20s, his mother passed away. And shortly after that, his teacher passed away. And Thai suffered deeply. When Thai heard that his teacher had passed away, he was overseas, he was in America, and he was already exiled when his beloved teacher, who had so much trust in him, who adored him, who taught him everything, and he learned that his teacher had passed away. And his teacher wished for Thai to be his successor as the abbot of the root temple in Hue. But when Thai's teacher passed away, Thai was in exile already, and he couldn't return. It was in 1968, about 2 years into Thai's exile. Thai's exile lasted 39 years. Thai had done a lot in Vietnam in the 1960s before being exiled. He had founded a university. He had founded the School of Youth for Social Service, which was a kind of social work program in Vietnam. Thai had been very inspired by his ideals and by the young generation in Vietnam who hoped for peace and who wanted to contribute their lives for a life of service. And Thai created a school to help those young people in Vietnam during the war who wanted to contribute to peace. And Thai was supported by many disciples and students in Vietnam, including a wonderful brother called Frère Thai Phap Phan. And he grew up with Thai. Thai was his mentor. And when Thai founded the first Thai Tuay Van, and when Thai founded the first School of Youth for Social Service, this young monk became the Secretary General of that school. He appointed Frère Tan Van to be the director of the School of Youth for Social Service. Thai loved Brother Tan Van as though he was his own brother. He had so much confidence in him. They had the same values, the same dreams, the same aspiration. Also at that time there was Sister Chang Kong, who also had the same dream as Tai. But when Tai couldn't go back to Vietnam because he had dared to call for peace, and as a result the government exiled him from Vietnam because they didn't want to give up. They didn't want anyone to call for peace. They wanted to fight to the bitter end. And so because Dai had dared to call for peace, so he was exiled. And so his students back in Vietnam had to take over Thai's roles. Sister Chang Kong, Brother Tan Van. They became the arms of Thai to continue his projects in Vietnam and to continue Thai's aspirations and dreams in Vietnam. And Brother Tan Van and Sister Chang Kong, they were excellent. They were afraid of nothing. They had a heart of a bodhisattva. They went all across Vietnam into every region to help the poor, to help those whose villages were being bombed in the war. And you know that today, with the war in Ukraine, the whole world, we know about it, the whole world is following the suffering that is happening. But in Vietnam at that time, it was very difficult to get out the news to the Europe and the West about what was happening in Vietnam. And that was one of the reasons why Thai had to come to the West to speak out, to tell the stories, to take a platform, to speak out, to say what was happening so that people could better understand the injustice. And so Thai could call for peace and call for an end to the war. But because of that, he wasn't able to return because he was exiled and he couldn't realize his dream. And so his students had to step up to realize Thai's dream for him over Vietnam. They did everything for Thai. And among them, there was Brother Tan Van, Sister Chang Kong. And Brother Tan Van, one day he had a car accident and he also was killed very suddenly when he was very young. And when Thai got the news, it was by telegram. At that time, the telephones were so expensive, and so Thai received a telegram announcing the death of his beloved student, and Thai was paralyzed with shock and grief. He was numb, he cancelled all his meetings and appointments, he shut himself in his room, and he cried. Thai suffered so many experiences of loss during the war and from his own teacher and mother. And Thai learned how to embrace this loss, how to embrace his pain of his beloved ones who passed away. And so when Thai teaches us the practices for handling grief and loss, they are the fruits of Thai's own transformation, Thai's own grief. And here in Plum Village, I feel Thai has given us so many teachings on interbeing, on no birth and no death. And even me in my own practice, I tried to train myself. And I could never say I practice no birth and no death. I kind of doubted a bit because I wasn't sure. Am I just at the level of the mind, or am I really, really touching these teachings? And I would often say to myself, when the moment comes, I will know. If I have really touched the insight of these teachings, I would never dare say, yeah, I've got it. I know what this is. I could never dare say, but I would say, when the moment comes, I will know whether I've touched this teaching or not, the insight of this teaching. And so when the moment came that Thai passed away, everyone was so worried for Sister Chang Kong and for the close students of Thai and for our group of attendants. Everyone was so worried. But in that moment, we realized that Thai's teachings had really penetrated deep into our hearts and minds. We realized we were able to be at peace, calm, to do what we needed to do, to be how we needed to be in that moment. And it's only in that moment that we know that we have really received, and to such a deep level, these teachings of Thai. And last week we had here in the New Hamlet what's called a Rose Festival, where we celebrate parents and parenting figures in our lives. It's called the Rose Ceremony. And so we offered a particular sitting meditation in this ceremony, breathing in. I know that my Father is in me, in every cell of my body, in my genes, my genetic inheritance, in my thoughts. Breathing out, I know that my genetic mother is also there in every cell of my body, in my thoughts, in my consciousness. Our genetic parents in us and our genetic mother and father there in us. And if we happen to also have other nurturing figures in our lives, they are also there. Adoptive parents or caretakers, they are there in every cell of our body. Breathing in the presence of our parents. Breathing out, feeling our parents in us. Breathing in, I'm aware that my Father's breathing with me. Breathing out, I feel my mother breathing with me. Parents breathing with me. Breathing in, parents breathing out.
J'inspire.
Breathing in
La souffrance de mon père.
the suffering of my parents, of my father, is there in me. Their suffering is my suffering.
Je sais que la souffrance de ma mère est
Breathing out, I know my mother's suffering is also here in me. Her suffering is also my suffering. The suffering of my parents, breathing in, is also my own. Breathing out.
J'inspire.
Breathing in,
Je respire calmement.
I breathe calmly.
En moi.
And my Father
respire calmement en même temps.
in me breathes calmly with me.
J'expire
At the same time, breathing out, I smile, and my mother is able to smile with me.
Et je me souviens, juste après,
I remember just after my father passed away, I wrote a letter to Tai, and I wrote,
j'ai fait
Tai,
comme ce que vous avez dit.
I did as you taught us. I looked into my hand to see my father in my hand, but I still suffer.
Quand je suis venue au village,
And so when I came to Plum Village,
ce que j'ai vu là,
Tai said
c'est la pleine conscience. Et cette
that
pleine conscience reste encore au niveau de la
I was practicing mindfulness. I did generate an energy of mindfulness, but it was still at the level of the mind, at the level of the intellect. And it takes time for that insight to go deeply, to penetrate more deeply and become our own insight that can really heal our suffering.
Et vous savez,
And you know,
notre conscience,
our consciousness,
d'entre vous,
many of you might already have seen this diagram if you've seen Thai's teachings on YouTube. Oh dear, I'm not drawing this very well. Sister Định is drawing a circle on the board. I need to train myself to draw these circles a bit better. We have an egg circle. I'm going to fix it a little bit.
Vous savez que notre conscience,
So you know, our consciousness has two levels. We call this upper level the mind, the mental in French, the mind.
et ça c'est notre conscience,
And the lower level we call store consciousness. In French, conscience de tréfonds, store consciousness.
et quand vous lisez un livre,
So
vous utilisez votre mental
when we read a book, for example, we use our mind, our intellect,
et vous êtes éveillé
and you may
à la vision profonde
be awakened by the insight that you read in the book.
et ça touche
And that insight, that teaching, will touch the seed of insight that is found in your store consciousness. For example, the insight of no birth and no death. You can touch that insight when you read Thai's books or when you watch his talks. That will touch the seed of that insight that is there in your store consciousness. But if we don't continue to water that seed in our consciousness, then it will weaken, and if we continue to nourish that seed, it will grow bigger. So the second time you hear the teachings on no birth, no death, it will touch the seed again, and then that seed starts to grow a little bit more. We call this watering the seed of insight. And so that meditation that we, every time we sit calmly, every time I sit calmly and I get in touch with my own Father in me, every time I do this, I feel this seed of insight, the insight of no birth and no death. I feel that seed growing, and every time I do it, I'm developing and cultivating that insight. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And so it's not so longer an idea, an intellectual idea at the level of the mind. It's no longer at that level, but it goes much deeper into our store consciousness. Yesterday, Brother Phaphu, he shared that Thai, even in his coma, was able to continue his practice of mindful breathing because mindfulness had become Thai's life. There was no longer an effort to practice mindful breathing. For so many years, every moment that had penetrated so deeply into every cell of Thai's body, into Thai's store consciousness. So even when the Montal was not guiding Thai's consciousness, the store consciousness guided the body to continue mindful breathing. So every time you invest in taking a step in mindfulness, every time you remember to come back to your mindful steps, no matter where you are, each time you do that, just a few steps, you're strengthening that seed of mindfulness in your store consciousness, and it becomes a habit. It's no longer at the level of the mind. It becomes something deep in our consciousness, in our body. We have so many ways that we train ourselves on a retreat. For example, every kind of daily act that we are doing, we have in Plum Village little poems that we use that we can combine with these daily exercises in our daily life. And each one of these poems we combine with a particular action, and it helps us nourish our seed of mindfulness. For example, we have a poem for when we wake up in the morning. Waking up this morning, I smiled. 24 brand new hours are before me. I vow to live each moment fully and to look at all beings with the eyes of compassion. This is a 4-line poem for when we wake up in the morning, and that helps us bring the energy of mindfulness to the moment of waking up, to the beauties of life that are there for us. And there's another poem, for example, when we take a shower. No coming, no going, no after, no before. Both transmission and inheritance lie in the true nature of reality. We look at our body that has been transmitted to us. There is no birth and no death. That body is a continuation, a transmission, an inheritance. Our parents have transmitted their bodies to us. Our spiritual ancestors are also there in our bodies. The whole universe is there in our body. Mother Earth is there in our body. The sun, the trees, everything is there. There's water in our body. This body is not me. I'm not attached to this body. And when we take a shower, we can contemplate this. So many times in the day, we can use poems like this. We can use our mindful breathing. We can practice to strengthen this seed of insight of no birth and no death. Every time we practice a guided meditation, for example, the more we do it, the more we nurture this seed of insight, the stronger it will be in us. One day I remember we were tying up a hammock for Thai, and he tied up the hammock very well to make sure that when Thai lay down in the hammock it wouldn't fall down. And someone said, this hammock is going to stay forever, it will never fall down. And then the other brother replied, how do you know? Everything's impermanent.
Quand la pleine conscience,
This is a kind of concentration.
tenir cette pleine conscience dans la journée.
And what we want to do is to sustain our concentration through the day. And for example, the concentration on impermanence is a
Ça
concentration
guide nos pensées, ça guide nos paroles.
that directs our thought, our thinking, that directs our speech. And so this brother in that moment with the hammock, it just came out like the concentration of impermanence was so strong in him that when he heard someone say, this hammock will be here forever, that insight came up right away because that insight and concentration on impermanence was so strong in his consciousness. So every time we hear the teachings, and they may be familiar, but we repeat them and we repeat them to strengthen these seeds of insight in our consciousness. Without the practice, we can suffer deeply.
Sans corps physique, c'est, vous savez,
And Tai knew that we can suffer and that we can have suffering in our pain in our body. And that's why Tai always taught us about no birth and no death. Even if sometimes we were a bit lazy to practice, Tai would always water that seed of insight in us. We're a little bit lazy. We don't. We maybe avoid the practice a little bit, but Tai was so patient with us. He would repeat and repeat. The insight of interbeing, of non-self, of no birth and no death. And even if we didn't do it, Tai would do it for us, to help us, to water this seed of insight in our consciousness. And it was only that day that Tai passed away that I knew that yes, this insight was no longer at the level of the intellect. It had indeed penetrated deep into my consciousness thanks to Tai's help. And so now I would like to bring this talk to a close because we will be gathering at the next sound of the bell. We will gather in front of the Buddha Hall and we will receive some instructions for how the ceremony of spreading Tai's ashes will unfold. And over the next 20 minutes, half an hour, and then through the walking meditation, please feel the presence of Tai in you, in every step, in every breath. When we come together to practice mindfulness like this with the collective energy, Tai is here with us. And this year we are celebrating 40 years of Plum Village, 40 years of Tai's energy here with us. And with every corner, every square meter, every square foot of New Hamlet, we can feel Tai's footprints are there with us. And each one of us, we are a continuation of Tai. We carry Tai into the future, together now, and with our collective energy of mindfulness, with our energy of compassion and love, we are continuing Tai for ourselves, for our children, for future generations. I wish you a beautiful day all together. Thank you. We will listen to 3 sounds of the bell together.